NYSOA Nation, welcome. Super excited about our member feature today. I'm with Khary Williams, and we'll tell you a little bit more about him. But first, if you missed Tony Ovas's interview last week, please go check it out. It's on our YouTube channel. We'll continue to have these member features throughout the month and give opportunity for our members to be spotlighted and help us learn a little bit more about our member stories. As you know, February is Black History Month, and it brings attention to the unique struggles and triumphs of the Black community. Here at NYSOA, we're focused on being an inclusive organization and using our platform for good. With that, we're super excited to spotlight our successful members and use this platform to share their stories and bring us closer together in understanding and supporting one another. So with me today, I have Khary Williams. Hey, Khary.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, welcome, welcome. He is OCSOA president. He's located in Cincinnati, Ohio, a little colder than it is here in Florida, I'm sure. He's been a member since 2013 with NYSOA, and his career highlight is working a Sweet 16 match in Indiana and getting to work with quite an all-star studded crew with Chico Grajeda, Tony Vasoli, and Corey Richardson. So what a fun highlight that must have been.
Yeah, that was a great opportunity, and you're sitting there next to a legendary coaching staffs of IU and Virginia Tech, and having to go back and forth between those that thing and keeping them calm, and here you are just trying to keep the peace. So yeah, it was definitely an interesting moment. Actually, Virginia Tech won, so that made it even more interesting.
That's awesome. Those playoff matches always bring an extra heat to them. Yeah. Definitely some of my highlights as well. Awesome. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? You can go ahead and introduce yourself to the group, anything I may have missed or anything you want to say about who you are.
Yeah, I'm Khary Williams. I've been OCSOA, which is the Ohio Collegiate Soccer Officials Association president for, is it 3 years now? 2 years, 3 years. I was secretary before that, and actually it was the first. I won an election. It was the first actually contested election that they've had, that the chapter has had. So that was a little bit awkward, especially because the guy that was previous president, I'm friends with him. It was just that I got nominated, and there was a vote, and I ended up coming up on the winning side. So that's been kind of cool. And then seeing how NYSOA and the chapter works from an administration standpoint has been eye-opening, dealing with conferences, meeting conference commissioners, dealing with complaints from coaches, dealing with all sorts of different things that I never had to deal with just as a referee has been eye-opening, and it's been challenging, and it's taught me to be very political with my answers. So it's been a entertaining and enjoyable experience. I've enjoyed it.
I can imagine. Well, we're excited to have you in that leadership role, and congratulations on winning that contested election. And hopefully you guys are still friends.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we still work games together and everything. It's not been a problem. And it's fine. He gets to spend more time with his daughter, so that's fine.
Perfect. Sounds like a win-win.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and get started. So love to kick it out and just better understand, what does Black history mean to you?
It's meant a lot to me for a long period of time. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and the school that I went to is predominantly Caucasian school. So it's had its ups and downs as far as every time Black History Month came up. Growing up in the 80s, 90s, it just meant about slavery. That's all it was. So now, in 2021, in this day and age, it's starting to mean so much more. And that's really important to me, because there's so much more to us than just, yeah, we used to be slaves. Yeah, that's great, but there's more to us than that. And so there, you grow up and you learn about presidents and Susan B. Anthony and Paul Revere and all these different characters as far as coming up in the country, and you don't get to hear about different people, Richard Allen or James Baldwin, or different people that have also enhanced America's stature in the world, and people that have fought for civil rights and so forth. So Black History Month is that time to let people know that there are people that have also contributed, and not just the ones you hear about in the basic textbooks.
That's awesome. Many people and organizations around the nation generally only celebrate Black History Month during the month of February and see it as a time to feature prominent Black historical icons and their contributions to the U.S., many of which you just named. What are your thoughts about this approach, and are there ways that the nation could do better in celebrating and honoring Black history?
It's kind of a catch-22 because you gave us the shortest month. Like we have all the months, and they're like, here, you get here, take this 28-day one, and if we're like, and then every once in a while we'll give you an extra day. So we have the shortest month. Yet there's still that segment of society that is like, we don't need this month. But I do believe that we still need it. I do believe that it's a very small time frame to actually learn about just different aspects. I didn't know that there was an official Hispanic month. So when that month comes up, I try to focus on some things that are going on with Hispanics. There's such a broad spectrum in the country, and for us to just spend 28 days on it, I don't see it as something that's detrimental. If you don't want to be a part of it, if you don't want to participate, if you want to put it aside, nobody's forcing you to do it. But for those that like broaden their minds and want to learn about just different aspects, it's necessary. And I'd hate to see it go away. I saw a story in Utah about a school that was giving their kids the option to opt out, and I just said, man, that's just you're not going to learn anything that's bad. You're not going to learn anything that's negative. It's not going to be something that's that your kids shouldn't know about, and it just makes them have broader minds. So I've always thought it's a necessary month. I just wish we had a 31-day month.
I never actually realized that February was the shortest month, but now that you
that's one of the inside jokes we've always had. So yeah, it's man, you give us a month, but then you give us the shortest month of the year. We'll take what we can get, I guess.
Sure. Thank you for that. So tell us a little bit about your experience as a Black official. What is it like? What challenges, if any, do you face because you're Black within this space? What positive experiences have you had, if any, because you're Black within the space? Who and what have contributed to those positive or challenging experiences? And what is that like?
It's, it rarely comes up. It's rarely, I think it's rarely a factor. It's only been a factor a few times, both positively and negatively. I've only had one incident of abuse in a college game. This was a few years ago. And I was so caught off guard with it. I didn't know what to do. I was running an AR on a game. I won't mention the schools, but I was running an AR on a game, and a player, I called a foul on a player on the line, and the player just looked over and said something to me. And I was shocked, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, did you just say what I thought you said? And he waved me off. And so I tried to get the attention of the center official, but I couldn't. And so I didn't want to make a spectacle of it. So I waited till halftime, told the center official. We went over and talked to the coach. The coach talked to the player, and they came back and they said, hey, he's saying he didn't say it. I was like, I know what I heard. He said it. I just don't want to hear it again. Yeah. And so I wasn't, it's that thing where I didn't want to make it about me, but I didn't want him to just know that he could just get away with that. And actually I've seen that player again since, and we've made up, and we've talked, we've shook hands and had a talk. He's apologized. I think in the heat of the moment he got caught in something, but that was my only negative experience. I've had several positive experiences. When I came up doing Latin League, unsanctioned Latin League. And one of the benefits of doing that league was I got the respect of a lot of the players. I think a lot of the players felt slighted by some of the other referees, whether justified or not. And I got a lot of the respect of those players, and I that's how I cut my teeth or cut my gums, as they would say, is doing those games and them seeing another minority out there. They don't get to see a lot of minority referees. They might get to see other Latin referees, but they don't get to see other minority referees. And so the fact that I was able to do a respectable job for them was a positive. And then I've had some parents actually come up to me and say, I appreciate you being out there. I appreciate, what you do. I know it's got to be tough. And so that was always like, and I didn't realize at the time, like why they were thanking me versus anybody else in the crew, but then I realized it. So that, yeah, it's been, for the most part, I don't even notice it. In fact, just 2 years ago, I did a Division II conference final, and it was an all-black crew. And that was the first time that I had an all-black crew. It was only 3 of us. There was no 4th, but that was the first time that I had an all-black crew. And I'm 44 now. I was 42 at the time. So, and then we noticed it. And so, it was interesting because we were celebrating it. Like, this is cool. This is the first time, and then you get this weird thing where you get some people who are like, well, who cares? Why is that a big deal? And it's like, I guess if you can't just see it through our eyes and our perspective, like, hey, we don't get to see this before. Most of the people I work with are Caucasian. Occasionally I get to work with some Hispanic referees, but the most part, I'm the only one. So for us to have an all-black crew was just huge, and that's a moment I'll never forget. We took pictures, and that game went smooth. Nobody said a word. Nobody mentioned it because we were just referees. And that's the one thing, the beauty of soccer is once you're on the field, everything goes to the wayside, and you don't have to worry about what certain people are, and I feel like the only time that's different, and hopefully I'm looking forward to when that changes, is when we have females on the crew. We still get too much of that, and that's been that I feel like is still worse than anything that I've had to deal with.
Wow, sounds like you've had some interesting challenges and some really exciting opportunities. I can certainly relate with having my first all-female crew. My first was at an SEC match in Louisiana, and you don't recognize it until you see it, and then you're like, well, this is cool.
This is great. Yeah, like, wow, we finally, okay, wow, it's like, it's all people that look like me or people that are me. And so, yeah, it's and the more it happens, and I lately, you just have the Super Bowl. We just had the first female official in the Super Bowl. We just had the first female coaching staffs to be in a Super Bowl. Like, it'll be great when we don't have these firsts anymore and they're just norms. But they need to be recognized because it's 2021 and we're just now having these firsts. So their importance shouldn't be diminished.
Absolutely. And I think even the Tampa Bay Bucks coaching staff, I think he had 3 Black coaches and 2 female coaches to talk about like a very diverse coaching staff to win the Super Bowl. For that team. Mm-hmm.
And it's not a slight against anybody else. It's just, hey, this is the first time they've had these opportunities. So you just celebrate it and move on.
Very cool. Talking about Black History Month, it was created in the second week of February to coincide with the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln on the 12th and Frederick Douglass on the 20th. Scholars have acknowledged the importance of these men. Who are some icons of inspiration that you've looked up to in your journey, and why?
Oh, without a doubt, Muhammad Ali. He's just such a large, prominent, vocal figure. And because of sport, and I relate to sport, I've been an athlete all my life. So it's easy to identify with him. And I understand, I couldn't imagine at the time, I couldn't imagine Muhammad Ali now in this day and age of social media. But the slack that he was just getting in the 60s, and him still persevering, it gives you a lot of strength when you look back at that time and him saying, hey, I'm not going over to another country to kill other poor people, and that's just not something I want to do. And him having the strength to speak out like that, it was it's always been inspiration for me. Yeah, I also, I'm heavy into aviation. I do flight simulators as a hobby and so forth. So Eugene Ballard is another one. He was the first Black pilot, and he fought in World War One. He was an American, but he fought for the French because the Americans weren't letting blacks be pilots yet. So he had to go fly for the French. So that's another person that I was like, oh, this is a cool story. So those two, Muhammad Ali through my life, and then more recently Eugene Ballard, just his story, it was very impressive to me.
It's amazing hearing some of the stories of struggle. It really makes you appreciate today, even as difficult as today is, right? Like the struggle of the past it's hard to conceive. Speaking of some of those struggles, in today's society, it certainly can be challenging for officials to come together, especially with social media. You mentioned it earlier. However, as you also said, sport is something that unites us. It brings us together. I think you said, once we're out in that field, everything else goes away, right? Which is the beauty of the game. Do you have any advice to officials who find themselves in a locker room, working with officials who maybe don't necessarily look or think like them?
Yeah, the biggest thing would be yourself. I never change for anybody. That's the biggest thing, and that's an easy thing to say, but it's maybe a harder thing to do. You might find yourself trying to make yourself more relatable to other people and so forth, but just be yourself. I am a mostly blue voter in a red state. So, but that doesn't come up, so, what's the saying? You don't talk about religion, you don't talk about politics. Keep it out of the locker room. You can talk about your family, you can talk about previous games, you can talk about maybe sporting event or something like that, but just keep that stuff away. I know a lot of the guys that I work with don't see things politically that I do, but it doesn't come up. Some of those guys are great friends of mine, come over and hang out and barbecue and stuff like that. But when we're in the locker room, it's about the game. Keep it about the game, focus on the game. And you'll be better off, because the last thing you want is to have a disagreement because you wanted to bring something up. And then now you have that animosity, you have that awkwardness. And then when you got to communicate, they don't trust you, you might not trust them. And then you have an issue of 22 other players that have nothing to do with something that you guys brought up prior. So just focus on the game, focus on your job. But as long as you're yourself, you'll have no problems.
Great advice. I love that. Be yourself. If you had an opportunity to speak directly with decision makers, what advice would you have to them regarding ensuring or creating opportunities for Black and minority officials?
This is a tough one. When I came up, I had a lot of help from anyone but minorities. There was not a lot of minority officials in the area, but they still wanted me to succeed. They saw the potential in me and helped me push forward, and I'm very much appreciative of that. I do think that there are sometimes some key things stereotypes that we kind of get stuck into. One of the things, for me, and I think a lot of other Black officials, when we get evaluated, it's a lot about our physical abilities. We run fast. He looks strong. He has the presence of, and so forth. And helping shape and mentor the mental aspect is just as important for Black officials as it is for any other official. it wasn't until much later that I got some of the advice that I needed as far as managing personalities, managing the game, managing different players, different aspects of players. I didn't get that probably until much later, probably until we had a pro academy in Ohio South, and it wasn't until I got near Chico and Mike Sawyer's and some of those guys that they were able to help me with that aspect. But all the way coming up to that point, it was all about, hey, you run fast, you keep up great, you know, you're fit, you know. I mean, those things are obvious. Those things, you know, that it's the other aspects of the game that you know are so much more important. The fit is for me, being fit is the bare minimum. But there's so many other little nuances that need to be focused on. And I feel like that if that could be improved upon when you're dealing with minority officials, that would be great.
That's great advice. You know, we can be fit, but to get those extra soft touch abilities and having somebody to have the courage to give you that feedback is really crucial for development, right? If you can't manage players, you're not going to be able to climb that ladder. So that's great feedback.
Yeah, definitely.
Wonderful. What suggestions would you make to improve the experiences and outcomes of Black officials?
This is another tough one. You know, when I became an assigner and an assessor for USSF, one of the things that I noticed is that there just aren't many. There aren't many Black officials coming up. There aren't many minority officials coming up. There's a few Hispanic officials, but most of there's just not that many. And it's hard to find a way to say, hey, we need more of this without other people seeing like, hey, you're excluding us. That's always been a fine line. And I personally would just like maybe some sort of program. You know, one of the things that we deal with players is that they don't even see officiating as a track. It's straight to coaching. It's straight to you know, I'm either going to be a pro player or I'm going to be a pro coach, and doing more to get officials out there from once they're done playing would be a huge benefit. And so I honestly think that the focus should be, before they even become officials, is getting people to actually want to be an official, getting people to understand that, hey, this you can have just as much fun. You can make a good amount of money. You can still stay involved. That's one of the reasons I became an official. Was well, two reasons. One, I always thought that I could do better than everybody that officiated me. So that was one of the reasons I joined. But then two is just that, you know, I to keep that adrenaline rush and to keep that to be involved, and just I get the same adrenaline rush in a Division I men's match that I did when I was a player. So I feel like if we spent more time focusing on the player, you know, bringing players out and into officiating, I think that would increase the volume. And then from there, we can look at, okay, now how do we shape these officials so that they have every opportunity as everybody else?
Absolutely. What advice would you have to aspiring Black officials?
Again, it's mostly about be yourself, but I've never, I shouldn't say I've never, but it's rarely a time where I'm sitting here thinking, here I am as a Black official. I'm usually, here I am as an official. I just don't feel it. Now, maybe I'm naive, maybe I'm seeing different and I just don't realize it, but I'm in my head, I'm just focused on being official. And that, I think, has helped me. I don't think you should sit there and be focused on, hey, here I am, I'm a Black official, treat me as a Black official. I don't think that's the way to go. I definitely believe just do your job as an official and everything else will fall into place. there's, like I said, there's been very few times that I felt like my status as a Black official has even come up. So.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think that's a great perspective and way to look at it. When we talk about Black History Month, it's not just about celebrating the progress and the history, but also looking ahead. What's your ideal future state look like?
I mean, definitely more involvement. I don't, I think I don't know the history too much of my organization, but I feel like I'm the first Black president, which is, I didn't really want to be the first president, but I feel like, so now maybe there'll be some others, but we only have like, I think 4 Black officials in our chapter of like 80 people. The future would be where we're more, it's just normal. Like I spoke of earlier, that first crew was 2 years ago. If just getting more numbers in the ranks, I personally haven't dealt with a lot of discrimination. I know more Black women would be ideal. There's more and more. There's tons of Black women playing soccer. I don't see that many. I know of 2 that I've come across. One's here in Ohio, and then another one when I met at Youth Nationals. So, more Black women would be great, because there's more women's games than there are men's games to officiate, and so the more that the women see more of them out there and is more like them, then the more beneficial that is, and the more respect you get because they know that you've been there, they know where you're coming from. So for me, more Black women would be superb in the future.
I love it. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how often you've come across Black female officials. I don't, and I'm sure more than I have, I'm sure, but just it's probably not that much.
Yeah, we have a few in the state of Florida. Okay. And we talk quite often that their struggles are definitely very different. And some of them are climbing the pro ranks. So we have Natalie Simon did her first 4th official in MLS this past year. So hopefully you'll see them in more prominent positions as well.
Yeah. And then that just helps, and everybody's comfortable with it. You don't get second looks. And once it's a norm, then we're not talking about it because it's happening all the time. So.
Exactly. Amen to that. Is there anything else that you'd like to add or share regarding your take on Black History Month and your experiences as a Black official that we may not have covered?
Yeah, like I said, I feel like my experience has mostly been good. I was elected chapter president. I've gone to, I was selected to go to Youth Nationals. I've done NCAA playoff games. I truly feel like I've earned everything that I've accomplished. I don't feel like I was gifted anything because I'm a Black official. I don't feel like I also don't feel like I was excluded. And I do believe that that's one of the things that this sport has going for it, is that once we're between the lines, it's all about your ability. That's one of the things that I feel like most enjoyment. I can talk about things outside of soccer that are completely different, but inside of this sport, I do believe that I've been treated fairly, and that's what I would ask across the country. Just treat us just like all the other officials. And like I spoke to before, the same standards for everything. Hey, don't get caught up in the stereotypes of running fast and this thing. Just focus on the same things you focus with every other official, and everybody will be better off for it.
Absolutely. Well, Khary, I have to say it was certainly enlightening talking to you today. Our conversation, some of the things that I took away was it's all about your abilities, getting involved, broadening your mind, and making sure that we're seeing it through your eyes, I think is really important. And some things that I took away, and thank you for taking a leadership role. I think that is also super critical, and you have so much influence being in a leadership role, as an assigner and assessor and administration. And you're going through a lot of the challenges that happen with administration, but at the same time, you're a voice for those that are coming up behind you. So thank you for your service and thanks for your leadership. And I really look forward to seeing you on the field here soon. But again, thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to share your journey with us all, help encourage us to come together and listen a little more and see it through your eyes. And I appreciate it. I know it takes courage and to be vulnerable out on the stage and in the spotlight. So thank you. I appreciate it. And I hope our NYSOA Nation does as well. So Khary, I appreciate your time. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.